Hey, my name is Mike Acosta from ADSR Sounds, and in this particular video, we're going to be talking about acoustical room treatment, which I think is something that a lot of producers, artists, musicians tend to overlook when they're building out their home studio spaces. In this video, we'll also be taking a look at a time-lapse video of the entire install process. I'll show you the before, the actual installation process, and the end results using the Auralex Sonolite panels. I think you're gonna enjoy this one. It should be really interesting, so let's get started. Now, one of the most common oversights with many home studio spaces is proper room acoustic treatment. Everybody gets their desk, their software, laptop, they get the big Starship Commander chairs, maybe the studio monitors, and then of course some LED lighting for ambiance. But in reality, what you should be doing is paying attention to the actual sound of the room first before you actually bring in any of your gear. And then what you want to do is put together a plan to address some of the issues of that room with some form of acoustic paneling, whether it be foam, panels, or something, to try and treat the room's sound issues before you actually bring your gear in. By doing this, you can prevent some of the most common issues with untreated rooms, such as slapback, echo, flutter, and low frequency problems. All of those issues can lead to major problems while mixing and recording by not being able to accurately hear the sound and then make the proper mix decisions. Now, I've been using Auralex products since the early 90s and they've always worked out great for me. But the good thing is that nowadays there's a ton of other companies that are offering different options, and there's a ton of videos online from DIY guys that are just kind of coming up with their own ways to create their own acoustic panels for a fraction of the cost. You know, the do-it-yourselfer guys. I'm not a do-it-yourselfer guy, so I've always just kind of stuck with a particular brand that I felt worked best for me. Now, personally, as I mentioned before, I've always been happy with my Auralex products, and I've been using their studio foam products for a really long time. And the one thing that I always enjoyed is that they offer a free analysis of your room. And now they actually offer you 3 different options to choose from. They have one that is for rooms that are under 700 square feet, and you get those results immediately. The next step up is the PRAF option, which is normally what I use. And with that option, it's for much bigger spaces and even commercial facilities where they will actually give you a diagram of the room with the walls flattened out and then show you exactly where all the panels should be placed. And in some cases, they'll actually give you other options. So if you're kind of budget conscious, then they may give you 2 or 3 options using different products based on whatever your particular budget may be for that project. So either way, it's always been really cool because trying to figure out where to place these panels is a huge thing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then you could be wasting your money if you're purchasing these panels and then just kind of throwing them up on the wall. So that's one of the biggest reasons I've always really liked the Auralex stuff, is the free analysis to really place the panels in the correct positions and get the best results and more bang for your buck. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I use the PRAF option. And I'm gonna insert a diagram here of what Auralex sent back for my particular room space here. And like I said before, I used to use the studio foam products, but this time I decided to upgrade to the Sonolite panels. And let me explain why. So this is a Sonolite panel, and at the core of the Sonolite panel, it still uses Auralex's high quality studio foam products. So inside, it's still the high quality studio foam product. But on the outside here, it's actually covered with a nice velour fabric. Now, obviously this adds a much more upgraded aesthetic look to your studio, which is great. The velour fabric is really nice. It protects the foam. And actually on the back, you have like a plastic coating backing. And let me explain why I made this decision. Now, the studio foam products are great, but if you're like me, where you maybe rent and have to move from place to place sometimes, your studio foam can actually get damaged when you have to take it down, put it up at a new place. And what I noticed with some of the studio foam products over time, depending on your studio space, the color of the studio foam can degrade over time, depending on how hot the studio gets, how much sunlight may be coming in and hitting the foam products. All of those things play a part in the studio foam degrading over time. Now, it's over a long period of time, so not like in 2 or 3 years. I'm talking like, 8 to 10 years, you start to see some discoloration and stuff like that. And because I've had to move studios several times, every time I would put the panels up and take them down, the foam pieces would start getting chunks ripped out and all of those kinds of things and getting even more damaged. So the option to go with the Sonolite panels, again, it's completely protected by the soft velour fabric on the front, which is great. It won't degrade, the color on this won't change, and so that's a really cool thing. And on the back, this is a really, really key feature for me. Because it has this plastic kind of coating on the back here, you can actually use, well, I use the 3M double-sided adhesive tape, and you can place them on the back here. And if you have to take the panels off, it's not gonna damage your walls, and it definitely is not gonna pull chunks of foam, you know, out of your panels, which is awesome. So if you have to move from studio space to another studio space, then this might be a better option if you want to protect your investment more long-term. So that's why I decided to go with the Sonolite panels, and they've actually turned out really, really great. The room sounds good, and I have no problems at all with them. I also used some diffusion panels here. So you'll see in the video on the ceilings here and in the back, I put some diffusion panels on here as well. Now, Auralex does offer a bunch of different products, and they do have things that are more budget conscious. So they do have room kits, which is cool, because back in the day when I started, they didn't. It was just you had to buy the panels and figure out your room configuration. So now they actually have room kits based on square footage size of the rooms. So if you're not too familiar with things and you're on a strict budget, you can get one of their smaller room kits, and it'll get your room pretty dialed in, and it'll be much better than having a completely untreated room. So, like I said, I have a time-lapse install, so let's take a look at that on the installation of the Sonolite panels here in my brand new studio. So as you can see, I'm using double-sided tape on the panels. Now, Auralex does provide some double-sided adhesive tape, but I've found that 3M double-sided adhesive tape seems to be a bit more forgiving if you mess up and you need to readjust the panels a bit. And you definitely want to use the panels that you get in more of the mid to upper portions of your walls. Now, obviously, if you have more panels and can cover more of the bottom sections, then go for it. But if you're on a budget, you probably only have a certain amount of panels. So you want to focus that on the mid to upper portions of your walls, as that's going to be more important. Same thing with the base traps. But if you do have the budget and you have more panels, then by all means, cover as much as you can all the way to the bottom if you want. Another thing too is make sure your walls are clean and free of like dust particles or anything like that. That could cause the adhesive tape to not bond properly. So just kind of get a feather duster, wipe down your walls a bit, and make sure that they're really clean before you start putting any of the adhesive tape and the panels on the wall. Now, once you place a panel on the wall, it's usually a good idea to put some slight pressure against it for about 30 seconds to a minute to allow for the adhesive tape to bond and cure a bit. Now, the total install time was about 4 to 5 hours. And I think most of my time was just spent on all the measuring and penciling in. I'm a little OCD, so I gotta like to make sure that everything is straight and perfectly aligned. But like I said, overall time was maybe 4 to 5 hours or so. Overall, it was a really, really simple install, much easier than my installs before with the regular studio foam products, that's for sure. It was really, really simple to do. And as I said before, I do prefer using the 3M double-sided adhesive tape. Now, the tape that comes with the Auralex panels works great. It's really strong. But the 3M can be a little bit more forgiving if you have to take a panel off, adjust, and then replace. I tried doing that with one of the Auralex tabs and it took a little bit of the paint off, so it's just something to be aware of. I went to Home Depot, I bought like 4 rolls of the 3M double-sided adhesive tape, and it works great. And the cool thing too is that on the back of the panels, if you need to take it off, it peels right off. It doesn't damage the panels or anything like that. So again, that is something that's you may want to consider. Like I said, super happy with the Auralex Sonolite panels. It sounds great in here, and the install process was pretty simple to do. Make sure you go on over to the Auralex site and check out all the really great products that they have. They do have stuff for commercial facilities. If you do want to soundproof a room, they have all the stuff to do that as well. I get a lot of people that ask me questions, and yes, there is a difference. Using these panels does not soundproof your room. It just treats the sound from bouncing all around the place in your room, but it doesn't soundproof the room. They do have materials and things for the construction to actually do that if you want to do that. And you can check that out on the Auralex site. But these panels are primarily designed, again, to just treat the room for acoustic problems with sound bouncing all over the place and keeping everything nice and tight, and so that you can make proper mix decisions. Again, they do have the free analysis, so make sure you check that out. Even if you're a DIY kind of person, a do-it-yourselfer, check out the free analysis that you can get on your room so that you can see where the panels should actually be placed. And when you are placing your panels, again, place them towards the middle to upper portions of the walls. If you have more panels and you have more budget to cover more of the lower portions, then by all means go for it. But if you have just a limited amount of panels, focus on the mid to upper parts of your walls. Again, check out the free analysis. It's gonna really help you out and get your room dialed in. It's definitely worth the investment. And before you go, make sure you subscribe below to the ADSR YouTube channel so that you're constantly up to date with all of our first look videos, quick tip tutorials, and full-on courses. My name is Mike Acosta, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.